Welcome. Today we're going to talk about how to create a basic control panel with Ruby on Rails using HTTP basic authentication. And also we're going to talk about how to load environment variables into your Ruby on Rails application. So let's get started. Start the Rails server. And I already have a pre-built website which is running Ruby on Rails, but it's fairly static. So what we can do is we want to add admin control panels. So it's going to be /admin. That's where we want the control panel to appear. Right now we don't have anything set up. Rails generate controller. We're gonna generate controller named control panel, which has index, new, create, and destroy actions. Fairly standard procedure. Now I'm gonna use Vim. I'm gonna go and open up the routes. Since our control panel controller has one name, but we want the admin panel to be in whatever our website name is /admin, we're gonna first create resource. Notice it's not resources, it's resource, because this is gonna be a control panel for only one user, and there's gonna be only one control panel, so we don't need to use resources, but we still explicitly set the index action. And since we want it to be localhost or whatever your website is /admin, we'll create another route, which is getAdmin as admin, and there you go. So /admin, that will take us to the control panel. Also, side note is that when we used Rails generate the controller plus the actions, it automatically generates the views for those actions, which is why this page loads. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create HTTP basic authentication for our control panel, since we don't want everyone to be able to access it. So the way we do that is we use HTTP basic authentication. Ruby on Rails comes with it already. So this is the basic way to do it for at least one user. So we'll specify the name and the password. Now this will work, of course, with our name test and password test. Let's reload it and type in test, and we're back logged in to the same page. However, one thing we need to make sure is that you don't want to have your username and password hard-coded into source code, because that's not a good security practice, especially if you're using and checking your code to GitHub and such. So what we're going to be doing is using environment variables. One way to do it is use the env, and the username gonna be CP user, and the password is gonna be CP password. And locally, to load those variables and set them up, we're going to have to use a YAML file, which is basically a human readable markup file. See, right now it's not working because we don't have it loaded anywhere. So yeah, we're gonna create a config application.yml file, and we're gonna put those variables that we're using with HTTP basic authentication. So CP user is gonna be test, and CP password is gonna be test. All right, so then we need to modify our config file as well, config application.rb, because we need to load that file. We need to load that YAML file. So we need to update our environment variables as follows. We use env update YAML load, and we're going to load the file which contains our user password. And another thing we need to do is to make sure that we only try to load the environmental variables from that file if it exists. Otherwise, it can generate some kind of error. And that's how we do that. All right, so let's test that. Oh, didn't work. And one reason is because you have to restart your Rails server. Don't forget that in order for it to run and load all those variables. And let's cancel and test it again. And boom, we are logged in. So that's our local variable file. So if you want to push to Heroku, you have to set those variables manually, like Heroku config set cp user equals to whatever you want the password to be, and then what you want the username to be, and cp password to whatever you want the password to be. Make sure you set those external variables for your Heroku configuration. And in fact, we don't need this file in our GitHub on Heroku, so we're gonna add it to get ignore. That way, no one will be able to access that file, application file, and see our username and password. So remember, that's the difference. Keep that local file and put in the get ignore, and to make those variables work on Heroku, you have to set them manually. And as you can see in our get ignore, we added the config application.yaml. All right. So in part 2, I'll show you guys how to use carrier wave gem and upload images to your control panel. If you have any comments or suggestions, you can leave them on my blog or my YouTube channel. Also, make sure to check out aflexsystem.com and opt in for the latest episode updates. You can also email me at aflexsystem@gmail.com.